homework, you're going to be having problems like this one, where you've got, let me put it on the screen, where you've got, anytime you have decimals, right? So, where is it? Here it is. Or large numbers you need to subtract. It seems to me a lot easier just to do it with a calculator. All right, so what you want to do is, you want to put your first group, you need to subtract the first group from the second group. So turn on your calculator, go to Stat Edit, and I would say, I would put the first group into list 2, and the second group into list 3. That'd be my suggestion. So you type your first group into list 2, with the decimals, second group into list 3, and you want to do L1 minus L3, correct? Everyone understand what I'm saying? You want to do your first group minus your second group. So you want to do list 2 minus list 3, and I put that into list 1, because what happens is, if you use list 1 and list 2 and you subtract and put them in list 3, there's always going to be 1 or 2 people who what they do is they do stat calc one of our stats on list 1 instead of list 3. So it's just easier if you can think about it to work on putting your first group in list 2, second group into list 3, and then let me show you how to subtract them. In list 1, you're going to arrow up so that my black arrow, my black space bar is on the L1. Everyone see where my black cursor is on L1? And I want L2 minus L3, so I'm going to do second 2 to get L2. You can see it come in right here. Minus second 3 to get L3. And then everyone look up at L1. Look up. Bam. When I hit enter, it pops it right in there.
Ew.
Super cool. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So then you can do stat, calc, 1 bar stats on second L1, and that gives you your X bar and your S. Remember to use S, not sigma. So that is going to be a lot easier. You're going to want to use that for the homework, for the 9.4 homework. Use that neat trick. And especially anytime you have weird decimal numbers like this. On the exam, you won't have hard numbers like that, but on your homework you will. Does anybody want to see the trick again? Or are you all good? Oh, I just did. Everyone's all good? Yeah. No, not doing yeah, the magic trick will be later. I'll do that after Thanksgiving. So today we're doing quiz 9.4. And then we're going to kind of move on and review chapters 7 through 9. Don't forget to do today's Connect Math 9.3. And also, if you want to turn in your Lab 7 late for full credit, today's the last day to turn your Lab 7 in late for full credit. Sunday, you have Connect Math 9.4 due, which is where you're going to want to use that calculator trick of subtracting them on the calculator with the lists, I think. And then with 9.3 today, you also might have some situations where you need to put the data in and do stat calc 1 bar stats again to find your mean and standard deviation. But I feel like now you folks all have some practice with it. So that's good. Quiz for chapters 7 through 9 are reopened. So if you did not do any of chapters 7 through 9 quizzes, you have another chance to get them done by Sunday night. Also, you have an extra credit opportunity over Thanksgiving to do that, to pick a mathematician and write about them. Today's mathematician. Obviously, we want to try to pick, try to show the variety of different mathematicians out there. So pick somebody who appeals to you or somebody who's unique and different. And then there's another one which we're going to go over. The other extra credit we'll go over in just a minute. The exam 3, you can take it Monday at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 7:30. Or you can take it Tuesday at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 7:30. If you really need to take it tomorrow at 11 a.m., I do have a limited number of spots while I'm teaching my other class. So there's going to be group work going on and noise going on around you. But if you need to take it tomorrow so you have the whole week off next week, you can do that as well. Just talk to me because I only have a limited number of spaces. Okay, so let's take a look at the other extra credit assignment you have, which is a discussion board on habits of mind. So there's all these soft skills. So first we want to have you read the article. You need to read this article on the unexpected benefits of virtual education. And then reflect upon which proficiencies are needed for modern careers in the post-COVID market. And then take a look at which ones, there's some questions for you to answer. And how it kind of, you need to kind of decide on kind of what soft skills you want to work on this semester, and maybe next semester too, since this semester's kind of mostly gone. But some thoughts about that, and then read other posts and reply to other people. So here are the soft skills themselves. So we're going to get people reading these. All right, first one, Francois, read the first one for me.
Persistent.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
Persevering.
Persevering. Is in task leading to completion, remaining focused, looking for ways to reach your goals is stuck, not giving up.
Okay, I'll make it bigger for folks. These are kind of one of my tough ones. This is one of the ones I need to work on. Nathan, go ahead and read.
Take your time, thinking before acting, remaining calm, thoughtful, and deliberative.
Thank you. I said it very calmly. Nicole?
It's cut off a little.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yeah. Listening with understanding and empathy, understand others, devoting mental energy to another person's thoughts and ideas, make an effort to perceive another's point of view and emotions.
Perfect. Ayla.
Thinking flexibly, look at it another way, being able to change perspectives, generate alternatives, consider options.
Right? Thinking outside of the box. And different ways of looking at things. Austin.
Applying past knowledge to new situations. Use what you learn. Accessing prior knowledge, transferring knowledge between the situations in which it was learned.
Right? That's why history is so important, right? Applying past knowledge to new situations. Avery.
Questioning and problem posing. How do you know? Having a questioning attitude, knowing what data are needed, and developing questioning strategies to produce those data. Finding problems to solve.
That's another good one. Alondra, did I have you read already? Great.
Thinking about your thinking.
Metacognition.
Know your knowing. Being aware of your own thoughts, strategies, feelings, and actions, and their effects on others.
Great, thank you. Right, so thinking about thinking, that's a lot of why I have you do your exam reflections, the exam wrappers. So you kind of think about how you learned, how you prepared last time, how you might want to change in the future, stuff like that. Kind of think about how think about your learning as well. Daphne.
Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision. Strive for accurate communication in both written and oral form, avoiding overgeneralizations, distortions, and deletions and exaggerations.
Yes, it's good to avoid the exaggerations. My dad exaggerates all the time. It's crazy. I'm just like, no, Dad, I did not win the World Series of Poker. Just, oh well. He's Dad, right? Diego, go ahead.
Gather data through offenses, use your natural pathways. Pay attention to the world around you. Gather data through all the senses, taste, touch, smell, hearing, and sight.
Right. Oh wait, next. Omar.
Creating, imagining, and innovating. Try a different way. Generating new and novel ideas. Fluency, originality.
Perfect. Desiree. Sorry, Destiny. Desiree's in a different class. Good.
Responding to fundamental in awe. Have fun figuring it out. Finding the world also mysterious and being intrigued with phenomenon.
Perfect. Great. That's stop and film group. So we appreciate the wonderful sunsets we have and everything else. 16. Yeah. Lauren?
Yes. 16. Remaining open to continuous learning. learn from experiences, having humility and pride when admitting we don't know, resisting complacency.
Nicole, have you read it?
Yes.
Noor, you haven't read yet.
Yeah. Thinking interdependently, work together, being able to work in and learn from others in practical situations, teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork. That's a big part of what we're doing in this class. Michaela, hold on a second, let me get it for you. Go ahead.
Finding humor, laugh, and little. Finding whimsical, incongruous, and unexpected. Being able to laugh at oneself.
Thank you. And Angelo.
Taking responsible risk, venture out, being adventuresome, living on the edge of one competence, trying new things constantly.
Right. So those are all really great skills. They're what we call soft skills, right? They're skills that we don't teach in the classroom necessarily directly, right? But they're skills that we would like you to be working on in the classroom because they make you kind of a more complete human being and allow you to be successful in life as you move on, which is obviously one of our goals. I talked about exam 3 already, but just as a quick mention, it will cover chapters 7, 8, and 9. Study guide is in Canvas, along with the answers to the study guide is also in Canvas. You'll need to bring your tea table. You'll need to bring your yellow sheet, your magic formula sheet. You'll need to bring a handwritten by you, half-written page of notes. You'll need your TI calculator, and if you want scratch paper, you can bring scratch paper, though I do have extra over there if you ever need it. Okay. Yes, expert students. So one of my old professors in grad school, talked to us about expert students, and expert students have sort of things that they tend to do. One of them is, amongst other things, is they tend to take their exams when you get them back and look at what they did wrong, and then they come to office hours to try to figure out what they did wrong so they can learn and figure it out for next time, right? So that's one thing they do. Some other things they do is they don't just cram a couple days beforehand, before exams, right? They study a little bit throughout the month as they learn things. What one of my students would do is she would, every day after class, she'd spend like 10 minutes looking through her notes and figuring out the things that she needed to kind of work on or ask questions about or try to find connections with that class and with that information and previous information, right? Try and draw a connection between them. And they tend to look at how things are connected or related instead of just how do I solve this, right? How do I solve this is just memorization. And memorization, it's a lot easier to misunderstand what to do and kind of do the wrong thing, right? This whole class, math is really not about memorization. It's about understanding. So if you're just really memorizing steps, then that's just troublesome in a lot of ways, right? And I know with the hypothesis test, I do have you sort of memorize steps, but hopefully you folks understand the connection between the steps and kind of why we're doing them. And then finally, they're more likely to have a study session or ask questions of classmates to discuss problems or solutions, right? So talking about math is the best way of preparing for an exam. Do you folks remember when I was talking about how it's a lot harder to explain something to somebody else than it is just to know it? Because the act of putting it into words forces you to create this clear mental structure. So then you store that into your long-term memory in a better way, and you can retrieve from your long-term memory easier if you have a clear mental structure. So these mental structures, that's kind of, that's how we store our stuff into memory in the long term. So it's good to make that a clear mental structure instead of obviously a disorganized one. Oh yeah, and part of that is organizing information into a table. So some of the things you can do is think about the curve of forgetting, talking, explaining to others, reviewing your exam wrappers. So you folks just finished doing exam wrappers, maybe take a look at that and try to remember that's how you want to prepare the next time. And look at organizing information into a table, which we gave you. This is sort of information organized into a table. right? For exam 2, we sort of did one in our review sessions. As you start in on chapters 10 and 11, you're not going to have one of these for chapters 10 and 11. One of my students said, well, can you make us one? I said, no, I think you folks should, now that you've seen what they look like, you should work on making your own for chapters 10 and 11. That would be really useful, really good, and then make that into like your half sheet of notes. That would be like the way to do it, I think.
That's work.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be nice like that, but it's handwritten. You know, or if you can organize the information into a table, then that will make things a lot clearer for you. And if you made it yourselves instead of me making one, then you really understand it all. Yeah. Okay. How about the reader? Lindsay, read this for me. The part in black, the first 2 paragraphs.
Okay, math anxiety. 4 out of 5 students with math anxiety are average to high math performers. Rather, math anxiety is linked to higher activity in areas of the brain that relate to fear or failure before a math test, not during it. This fear takes up mental bandwidth during a math task, creating, for example, my feeling something blank and unable to think. There aren't math people and non-math people, only those who work through the challenging lesson and those who surrender too soon.
Great, thank you. Right, so a lot of times math anxiety is not even during the task, it's before, it's in anticipation of the event, anticipation of the exam, and being like, oh my gosh, what if this is on it? What if that's on it? What if I didn't prepare well? What if, all these what ifs, right? And I've seen a lot of my students go through this whole what if thing, and they just spin themselves around and freak themselves out before the exam's even there, because they're worrying about what they don't know. And what that does is, it takes up all their working memory, or a chunk of it, so then they have very little working memory to actually focus on showing what they do know. Right, so, so in a way, I would say just if you think you tend to do that, kind of distract yourself, like stay focused on what you need to do, and kind of say, I'm not going to worry about what I don't know, I'm just going to focus on what I can do. Right, because that will at least hopefully keep you from help you hold off that wall of fear and stress that's trying to bear down on you. And just say, okay, just focus on what I need to know and what I can do. Because all you can do is just do what you can do, which is you don't focus on how you're going to do on the test. Just do the best prep you can, and realize that that's all you ever have to ask of yourself in this world is what you can do. You can never do better than the best you can do. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy to ever ask or expect more than that of yourself, right? If I said I'm a failure if I don't, if I can't slam dunk a ball, then that's insane. I'm never gonna be able to slam dunk a ball. I mean, just period. That's just it, right? So you have to sort of just say, I'm gonna work at this as hard as I can, and that's enough, right? And if I don't pass this exam, that's okay. I'll pass it next time, or I'll do the best I can. And it's the world is not going to end, right? It's do the best that you can at whatever you're given, and that's all that you're supposed to do. I think in the world at that time. I don't know if that sounds weird, but it's kind of, it's what it is, right? And it's you're good enough. Don't feel like you're not good enough. Whatever you can do is what you can do, and that's good. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. So the other thing is, I want to point out the curve of forgetting, right? Which is if you just learn something and then don't look at it again until the exam, you're totally gonna. Then you drop all the way down here. You have to relearn it all over again, right? But if you just look at it the next day, so the next day you all have to eat lunch anyways, right? So during lunch, the next day after class, just spend like 10 minutes as you're eating lunch, just flipping through the notes and saying, oh yeah, I remember that now. And then it'll kind of re-up it in your memory. So then you kind of are, creating these neural pathways. And then you go do your homework a few days later, you look at it again, like, oh yeah, and you'll get it kind of right away. And then you can do your homework faster, easier. And then when it comes to the exam, you just have to do a couple minutes looking through the notes and saying, oh yeah, that's right. And then you can work at a problem, and you'll be able to work the problem just fine to prep for the exam. So that's kind of what we're saying. If you do a little bit along the way, then that makes it easier for you at the end. Okay, so I think I'm done with all of my trying to convince you to study differently stuff or other things. I want to take a look at chapter 9.3. So this is when you have two samples. They're means, but they're independent. So that means that either I'm giving you the means, the x bars, the s's, and the n's separately, or I'm giving them to you like number 14 in your. Remember we talked about this last class, number 14 on your study guide. So if you guys take a look at it, see there's numbers. There's a chunk of numbers, another chunk of other numbers, but they're not matched up. Here's a bunch of numbers. There's a bunch of other numbers. Right, so this is the independent two means. Just look at it here. That's fine. Look at that one. It's right here. Good. Everybody on board? So this is the two sample independent. So that's where you have the mu1 is equal to mu2, and then h1 is going to be something else, right? Greater than, less than, or not equal to. This is also the one where you have that odd test stat, right? It's different. It's that big, more complicated one, which is in your yellow sheet, right? Under means, hypothesis test, two sample, it's right in there. So that's the regular two sample mean test. Then what we have is our kind of our oddball, our dependent samples. So our dependent samples are going to be always matched up like this, right? They're not just a group and then another group. They're matched up like this. And I can never just say, here's an X bar and an S, here's another X bar and S, because you can't take two different X bars. You have to have the actual data matched up in pairs like this so you can subtract them. All right, so that's the thing. Dependent sample, they're matched up, and then what do we do with them? Then we subtract them. And then we kind of discard these altogether. So now all we have is our D's, and then we look at mu D. And mu D is always going to be for H naught. So remember, I had all of you grab your sheet here. If you didn't do this last class, do it now. But here's our test stat. What happens is once we subtract these, then we don't care about them anymore, and all we're looking at is basically a one sample t-test on the differences. So it kind of in a way it becomes no longer two samples. Your dependent changes, and once you subtract them, becomes a one sample t-test. So what I said was here under your one sample means, which is that first column there, I said draw another little line here and put in dependent or DEP, whichever you want to do, is the H naught is going to be mu D equals 0. So I think most of you did that last class. So then, your first thing you should have done today, when you're like, what do I do for my H naught? Look on this yellow sheet, it'll say, oh yeah, dependent, UD equals 0. Bam. And your H1, remember the only change between H naught and H1 is the sign. It'll be less than, greater than, or not equal to. Good? The other thing that's great is then you know that, remember whatever is here, your mu naught, that's the same thing that goes, whatever's in your claim is the same thing that goes there. So here, 0 is in my claim, so 0 is going to go there. Right, so then that helps you remember that, oh yeah, it's going to be also my X bar from my, that you got from your stat calc, 1 bar stats, minus 0. Good? Okay, so I think that should pull all those pieces together hopefully. So we are, all right, if if you weren't here last class, here's the notation. How about, who has not read yet? Drew, have you read?
No.
Great.
Notation for dependent samples. D equals individual difference between the two values of a single matched pair. Mu D equals mean value of the differences D for the population of all matched pairs of data. X bar D or D bar equals mean value of the differences D for the paired sample data. SD equals standard deviation of the differences D for the paired sample data. N equals number of pairs of sampled data.
Perfect. And then our test stat is going to be, like I said, it's just going to be, and you know what? I'm gonna make this X bar D. I think it's just easier. X bar sub D. And then remember, this is just 0, right? Because it's what's in our claim. This mu naught is whatever's in our claim. Our claim is 0.